And now I'd like to invite up Leslie Bonci, the sports dietitian. Some of her teams that she coached were Kansas City Chiefs, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Not anymore, which is why they're playing so dreadfully. I spent 31 years working in the NFL and then decided I needed to work with real people instead of them. But I always thought, wouldn't it have been a cool thing, and now I'm going to change the way I say it, of leaning over the goalpost, dangling a salmon fillet, saying, "Come to mama." I mean, come on. I think it might have made a difference. I've been in this field for a long time as a registered dietitian and probably 35 years of that as a sports dietitian. And I really do think we are the winfluencers when it comes to working with athletes to try and move the needle to helping them optimize what it is that they do in the land of the crazy sinfluencers of what they're hearing out there, which is really more about the fear factor. We've talked about that already this morning. Don't eat this. What were you thinking? Get it out of your mouth. That's not helpful. The other thing is that for athletes, a lot of time it's a neck down phenomenon, thinking about how this is going to make me bigger, faster, stronger, etc. And they're not thinking about the neck up. And that was part of the dialogue this morning, and certainly continues to be part of the dialogue as we move forward. So, this idea of being Seaficient is, something we use the words that encourage people instead of discourage people, and setting up some healthy competition around the training table. Not a bad thing to do, but that means familiarity with food. I'm a very big believer in this, of helping people convert from foodies to foodie. What are they going to eat instead of the other way around? Because if they're not eating it, it's not food, it doesn't work. So when we think about that nutrition prescription for our athlete, we really want to think about what those benefits are for health and performance. And I will tell you, when it comes to people that are active, whether they define themselves as athletes or active individuals, they usually want to focus on performance first. So number one, and then the health is down the road. When you're at the end of your career, is, oh, now I'm no longer involved in sport. And then they try and do things a little differently. Okay. I'm very used to talking to guys that are much bigger than I am and don't know. Telling you all about this. And this idea of being able to translate that science to something that is practical and doable and achievable more than once, but over a period of time, because practice makes perfect. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of kind of the from the sports nutrition spiel of what I think is very, very important and how I would define performance nutrition goals to be, because there are a lot of different things. So as you heard Jack mention, and I say this all the time, is when you are active, there are two things that are happening. You're getting ready for what you're going to do and preparing from what you did so you can do it again. Sometimes that's the same day, like a two-a-day. If you're a swimmer, you might be in the water early in the morning and then dry land in the afternoon. It just is that way. We think about equipment that athletes use. Basketball players don't really have a lot. Swimmers, it's the Speedo and goggles and maybe a hat, and that's all, to being very, very equipped. As hockey, that all the things you have to wear, that's your external gear. The internal equipment is the food and fluid. Somebody is not equipped to do their sport if they are not thinking about their fueling and hydration. There's no workaround with that. There's no shortcut. That needs to be part of the dialogue. So this idea of the fuel kit is really what is the athlete's advantage, their nutrition advantage. I worked in baseball for a long time, and when I started in baseball was right when some of these stimulants were banned. And I had players saying, oh my God, how am I going to energize myself? FOOD. It actually worked really well. It knew, but these are the types of things. They're so used to doing things a certain way, and now you have to make it something for. Unfortunately, we see that coming back with a lot of products marketed as energy products that have 0 calories. That's an oxymoron. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to have the calories in. We talk about consistency, and to me, that is the most important thing that athletes and active people do, are being consistent with the number of eating occasions that you have every single day, not a crazy amount of differentiation over the course of the week. We talk about the quality of food choice. A lot of athletes, they like that. Think about the quality of what is going into the body. Does this food contain omega-3? Is this food a source of a high quality protein? Does it help me to achieve my micronutrients, not just the macros, the micros? We think about the quantity consumed. And again, many, many years, I'm going to write the book now that I'm not working in it anymore, about things that players do and players that would show up with 6 flank steaks on their, why not 6 pieces of swordfish? I mean, come on, let's think about this for a minute. Quantity, sometimes it gets over exaggerated. Sometimes there are athletes that eat far more than they need, but we also see the other end of the spectrum of LDA, low energy availability. And it happens not just in female athletes, it happens in male athletes as well. They have to optimize, otherwise their performance will suffer and the injury rates go up as well. We think about the distribution, how food is consumed over the course of the day, and that certainly has been looked at regarding protein, that it's not little and eat an entire tuna. It is dividing it more evenly over the course of the day to help with muscle protein synthesis. I've never met an athlete yet who said, I want to be the weakest, slowest, and tired before I start. That isn't usually what they're trying to do, but if they're eating in a way that doesn't help them to achieve the goal, then it's time for some tweaking. And then the idea of supplement savvy. That doesn't mean no supplements. It needs to be part of the equation because this is what athletes are bombarded with all the time, but oftentimes they don't know what it is to choose. And they need some guidance with things that actually, A, help to correct the deficiency, help to optimize performance, help to fill in the gaps. So from the athlete's perspective, what do they want? You heard a little bit of this from Ted. If the food doesn't taste good, it doesn't get eaten. That's the reality. There has to be flavor to the food. There have to be foods that are around. They are accessible and available. And any more affordable. Need to be part of the conversation as well. Athletes are busy people. There's lots of moving parts. They might travel all the time, be it bus, plane, train, automobile, the whole thing. And so there needs to be a way to have foods that are portable, non-perishable for them. And that's particularly true in the pro on the go, the protein ideas. It's very, very hard to carry a piece of chicken around all day long. That's a food safety nightmare. If we use fish that is in a can or in a pouch, that oftentimes works beautifully. That is the portable protein that can help to get the needs met over the course of the day. The other thing about that is when we think about taste preferences and a lot of things that are out there in the protein space, to say this, with powders, bars, etc., they're all sweet. All of them, with the exception of something marketed as a jerky bar. Everything else is sweet. So when you have portable proteins that offer the savory, that's what canned fish does. That's what a pouch does. It provides another way of being appealing to that athlete's palate. They also want foods that feel good in the gut. And you heard Detlef say that, and that's really true. And that isn't something that athletes are oftentimes going to talk to their coach about. But they are going to talk to the sports dietitian about that. I don't like the way that feels. It makes me feel heavy. It makes my stomach upset, etc. So it has to be food that you don't just check off the box for. It has macros, micros, phytos, etc. It's the gut comfort level is first and foremost. Athletes are certainly concerned about foods that optimize body composition. We don't really talk weight management. It is optimizing body composition. So is somebody able to increase their muscle mass, decrease their body fat? For multitaskers, you want to do it all. It's just kind of the way it is. And the kind of thinking about foods that contribute to optimizing performance. Many of you might be familiar with the PED, performance enhancing drugs. No, it's PED, performance enhancing diet. That is what we are looking for. It's a lot safer. You don't miss time in your sport. So it really is something that tends to resonate well with athletes. So why seafood? Well, there just been a study published very, very recently in the Journal of International Sports Science Nutrition, JISSN, and talked about a lot of the benefits specifically for athletes, and not just for athletes, for everybody. But what might seafood do for somebody who is active? It is improved cardiovascular function during aerobic exercise. That is not the same as saying to somebody you're going to have a healthy heart. They don't really care when they are on the field. But if indeed I'm doing something that is optimizing blood flow, that is maximizing endothelial function so that I can do what I need to do at a high level when my body is moving, that is the aha moment for the athletes. It may indeed translate to enhancing endurance capacity. Now, certain sports, that's more important than others. Football, not so much. Play 30 seconds and you stand still for 10 minutes. Very strange. But in other sports, soccer, basketball, hockey, you're moving constantly. You want to be able to take it up to that next level continuously until you have a break. Indeed, the benefit of the omega-3s in helping to improve strength, but that is in conjunction with strength training. It's not by itself. That's a yes and. So the RT, the resistance training, along with the consumption of omega-3 containing foods. There have been some studies indicating that indeed there may be the measures of decreased delayed onset muscle soreness. So feeling less sore after a workout, that's not everybody who's seen that, but there are athletes that have reported that. And that usually, that's part of that repair front, so you can do it again. If you're overly sore, it's really hard to do it again. My eldest daughter-in-law just ran Berlin Marathon on Sundays, dropping like flies because it was 80 degrees. It was really not comfortable. So I'm texting her messages, need to do this. It's a good thing having a sport dietitian for a mother-in-law. And I'm a very nice person. So there also happens to be a positive impact on immune system function. And this is one of the things that I have seen throughout the years of working with collegiate athletes, professional athletes. You start preseason, everything's great, feeling good. By the beginning of October, the cold, the cough, the flus, kind of the gift that keeps on giving over the course of the rest of the season because the body gets burned out, broken down. And so indeed, if there are things that we think about that help to support a healthy immune system, that is critically important. Oh, and by the way, the food as well. So again, a lot of added value benefits. There may be some impact in terms of the inflammatory mark, stopping that inflammatory cascade. That kind of goes along with sport and overtraining, but it's the extent to which that is, the magnitude of, and if that can be somewhat truncated, alleviated by what it is that one's consuming, rather than the option always has to be some kind of anti-inflammatory in a medication, I'm going to do things on the proactive end with the food that I'm consuming. There may be neuroprotective benefits. However, it seems to be primarily in those who have already had repeated head impact when it comes to traumatic brain injury. So although it'd be very exciting to say if people do this on the front end, then that's going to minimize having a concussion, we can't say that because we don't know that that is true. I think helmets and other protective gear is really important, and maybe not fighting with heads. That might indeed decrease the risk of concussion, but there may be some benefit on the other side. And improve sleep quality. And one of the other things that was seen in this review was talking about gut health, primarily because the omega-3 fatty acids actually function as a prebiotic. So adding some other benefits for athletes. So we think about the how, and specifically related to sport. When it comes to omega-3 use, it does help in terms of training adaptation. So you have somebody who might cycle or run better with more efficiency, that idea of the economy. You know, the idea of enhancing resistance training so that somebody might be able to lift more when they are including the omega-3. That means they're still lifting. It's not just a lifting before to now. We have to be doing the strength training workouts as well. From the brain standpoint, the neuroprotective effects, and that is critically important. Right? Athletes are not just neck down. We want them to be able to think and function well. For my athletes in college, they are students first, athletes second. They have to go to class. There are things they need to be able to accomplish. They need to be able to think. There may be that reduction in fatigue and improved mood. And all of those things are critically important when we're looking at mental health and quality of life for people that are physically active. And then the idea of recovery. And there are some studies that have looked at this of a better job in terms of maintaining muscle mass after injury, which usually tends to happen if somebody is immobile and then they're going to be losing muscle. So the extent of that muscle mass can somewhat be modified by what's happening with eating. So you have somebody who's not quite so debilitated, and that's oftentimes a big concern. Hear it from athletes. There are probably several of them over the weekend for many teams, Achilles, ACLs, etc. You know, nobody bothers me on Sunday football day and I don't want to talk to anybody, I'm just gonna watch and tally up the injury. And certainly the idea of this recovery is so important. Talk about that always, because if somebody doesn't recover well, then they're not going to be able to push themselves the next time that their body is physically active. So, this idea of the why the try, what's the ROI? From a performance and health standpoint, if we look in the middle and we see the omega-3 fatty acids, we see on one side it is improved performance, and on the other side it is enhanced recovery. Both of those things is what we are looking at. Now, there are some athletes that want to focus on physique. Okay, that's fine. But again, everybody loves the word performance. That's a positive word. If you're doing things in terms of your eating that will help to optimize your performance on some or all levels, then you usually get a buy-in from the people that you're talking to. This is it. We're really trying to find what is compelling for them. So whether we're looking at neuromuscular function, whether we're looking at muscle, whether we're looking at helping if somebody has had concussion, if we're looking at supporting that healthy immune system, so you're not going to maybe miss your end of season because you're ill. If we're looking at minimizing oxidative stress, that doesn't take anything away from the demands of exercise, but it's having an impact on the other side. So maybe I can push my body more and I won't pay the price of being injured or being sick because of what it is that I'm doing. And this is actually a study that looked at ranking the strength of evidence on different types of sports and the role that the omega-3 fatty acids may play. So the first one is looking at strength training. It is the impact on helping with cell proliferation and protein synthesis. That's the reason. But again, not either or. Yes, and. So yes, you have to be doing the strength training, and there may be an additional advantage of using the omega-3. That's also using protein. I mean, it's a lot of things together, and this is a score of 5. So there's still more studies that are being done, to make it a little bit more robust. From the endurance athlete, it is minimizing flu. It is helping somebody to be able to breathe more efficiently when their body is exercising. It is minimizing the production of the free radicals or that oxidative stress. That's the reason for the omega-3s. When it comes to mixed or team sports, it is reducing that post-workout soreness when people are just kind of like aching along because their body hurts. Now, if you've been, tackled by somebody who weighed 300 pounds, you would probably hurt too. It's not going to be a lot of fun out there on the football field. That's collision nutrition. But we do talk about those things that might make a difference of what should be in those post-game meals. And maybe what shouldn't be there quite as often. Alcohol, but nobody really likes that answer. But when we have athletes that are immobilized because of injury, if it is stress fracture, if it's ACL, PCL, MCL, whatever, it is prevention of that muscle wasting to help them get back to what they want to do. We can't change the immobilization. If somebody's in a cast, that's the way it's going to be. But we certainly can change what it is they choose to eat and change that verbiage to one of action rather than inaction or frustration. And then when we look in combat sports, or those that have had concussion, again, that possible support for the plasticity of the neuron and functional preservation. These are the things that we're looking at, is retraining. Less brain strain, more brain gain. That's what we want to see. All right. So reeling them in, all right, the why to try seafood. It is the macros, right? That is the protein and the omega-3 fats. It is the micros, the variety of vitamins and minerals that are in those food items with brain and body benefits. The proscription for muscle preservation. Protein is a hot commodity right now, but not all proteins are conferring the same benefit. This is a selling point when we're looking at the benefit of seafood. As I mentioned, this idea of fish feeling lighter in the gut. Potentially easier digestion, it's lower in fat, it still has all the protein that's there, so it kind of checks all the boxes. The idea of pro on the go with can or pouch options to make it easy for people that are physically active. And that benefit of the omega-3s for heart, for cognition, for vision. All these things are very, very important. So when we think about the omega-3 fatty acid recommendations, and you've heard this already, is at least 2 fatty fish meals a week. Well, when we look at professional sports teams, they oftentimes have unlimited budget, and I will say that fish, particularly salmon, that's usually the one that everybody likes the most, is on the table. Not every day of the week, but a lot of days out of the week. Now, when we're looking at maybe a D3 school, not so much with fresh salmon because of the cost, but there's salmon burgers, there's other ways of doing things to get that omega-3 on the plate and into that body. The idea of the 500 milligrams of EPA and DHA daily, and the idea of get ALA right. We know that that also is a source, but is the conversion. This is the concern. So we're not saying that people should not have flaxseed or chia or all these types of things, but there are other things that they need to in order to optimize the amount of EPA and DHA that is derived from the diet. So 2 to 4 grams of omega-3 is what that recommendation is per day for athletes. However, needs aren't being met. Heard that a little bit already this morning. A study in 2019 of 1,500 NCAA D1 athletes that their average omega-3 consumption was less than 150 milligrams a day. All right, not getting the needs met. In some cases, it's familiarity. If you haven't grown up eating fish, you're less likely to have it. And so always about doing the try it Tuesday, taste it Monday, whatever it is we're going to do, increase in likelihood is somebody actually will try a food item. So that average omega-3 index in student athletes is about 4 to 4.5. In professional athletes, it's about 4 to 5. In the military, it's about 3%. And the goal is 8%. Right? That's a positive message to give. You don't want to be efficient. You want to be C-efficient. And so we're going to find the ways to get more fish out there and into the body. So a 3 for all, right? Lots of options out there. Now, being a sports dietitian, it's just one of those things. There are P charts. That is the look of your urine. There's the color. I think we change that and we make C charts instead. And we post the type of fish. Where do you get it from? What are the options? And again, if you're not familiar with eating fish, you don't know what these options are. And to make it compelling and to have it around so that athletes can actually try. So even when we look at some of the things that might not be familiar, oh, maybe I had an anchovy on a pizza, my husband's family, anchovy, all the time. They would do it every day if they could. I don't let him, but he does. The idea of things like mackerel, we're looking at lower cost items. This is really important as a way of getting more of those omega-3s in. If it is things like oysters, if it is salmon, if it is sardines, it's always about the taste and the try and the why. So these are the C charts that we look at. And then how do we become an aficionado? So let's fish for compliments. Seafood is a go-to and a go-with. Eat it alone, but it's really nice when you pair it with other things. So I can do that salmon burger and I can add vegetables in, and now it's 2 for 2 because I just got vegetables into somebody who wouldn't eat them otherwise. So maybe not seafood in a smoothie, that's really pushing it. But I think that there are other things we certainly can do to pair on the plate. So that idea of pairing with the produce, pairing with various types of grains, pairing with a potato, that is not only flavor combinations, that adds more nutrients to the mix. So we're hearing so much about the E word is protein, the F word for fiber is important, and that's what these other things bring to the table and bring to the plate as well. We can have the wide net with the variety that we have available. You all know this. The form, fresh, frozen, canned, all of the above, and the flavor because it is there, and doing different types of seasonings. It's a wonderful thing about fish. It lends itself to so many different ways that we might prepare it. And so the takeaways, we want to emphasize the why to try and the benefits of inflammation. What's in it, or implementation? What's in it for me? That seafood is not only about the protein and the healthy fats and the micronutrients, but it complements and can amplify the overall nutrition composition of the plate. That's a win-win all the way around. So when we prioritize seafood to correct deficiencies, that helps athletes shop. That's the acronym for Safeguard Health Optimized Performance. And so with that, thank you all very, very much. That was my second.